The Sweet 16 is officially in the books, and now we move on to the Elite 8, and like usual, I'm going to be predicting every NCAA tournament game that's remaining, starting with the Elite 8 and going all the way through the National Championship game. But before we jump into my predictions, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Kalshi for sponsoring today's video. And Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the US, and right now, if you sign up for Kalshi and use code TBN, you can get $10 when you trade your first $10. But what makes Kalshi different is that you're trading against your peers rather than a sports book, and it's available in all 50 states. And there's no better time than now to sign up while the tournament is still going on. So if you're interested, make sure to go to the link in the description for Kalshi and use code TBN. But now, let's jump into my predictions. So we're going to start out in the East region like normal, where we see the number 1 seed Duke Blue Devils getting the win over St. John's to advance to the Elite 8, and they're going to be taking on the UConn Huskies, who held off the Michigan State Spartans to advance to the Elite 8 as well. And this is going to be one of the best matchups that we have with two blue bloods in college basketball right now. But let's break down each of these teams. So I'll start with Duke. Duke, they are elite on both ends of the floor. They rank top 5 nationally in offensive and defensive efficiency, and obviously they have Cameron Boozer, the National Player of the Year in college basketball, on their team. They really focus more on going inside out though, as they do have Cameron Boozer, but Isaiah Evans has been playing exceptionally well in the tournament, was a big reason why Duke was able to get that win over St. John's. And they also have really good positional size, which I think is something that could give UConn trouble, as UConn isn't necessarily the biggest team, especially in the front court, and that's probably where Duke is at their best. And then on the defensive end, Duke is one of, if not the best defense in the entire country. And with the versatility of their roster, they have the ability to switch just about anyone, and that could cause huge problems for UConn as well. And then we saw in most of their games, especially against St. John's, they have really good rim protection that will bother some bigs. So I'm interested to see how Taurus Reed Jr. is going to handle that on the offensive end. But their biggest weakness to me, and I think it really showed against St. John's, is their free throw shooting. If they get late into a game and they have to shoot free throws, there is not that many guys on this team that are consistent. I know guys shoot decent percentages through the regular season, but when it comes to postseason play, that has worried me a lot, and it almost cost them the game against St. John's late in that one. And then we got UConn, and UConn, when they're hot, they're one of the best shooting teams in the entire country. They got shooters all over the floor with Alex Caravan, Braylon Mullins, Solo Ball. They shot 42% from deep against Michigan State to advance to the Elite 8, and I really think they're going to have to do something like that again in order to beat Duke. And right now, Taurus Reed and Alex Caravan just look determined to not let this team lose. They are playing great basketball in the NCAA tournament so far this season. As I mentioned, they have that perimeter firepower. They also have a really good point guard in Silas Demery Jr., and Malachi Smith played really well against Michigan State also. But where UConn really hangs its hat this season is on the defensive end. They have suffocating rim protection of their own with Taurus Reed Jr. and then with Eric Ryba when he comes into the game. And then on the perimeter, Silas Demery Jr. and Malachi Smith both set the tone with aggressive ball pressure and can force guards into some high turnover games. And this is a bit of a concern for me with the Duke guards, who are a little younger, but UConn itself is turnover prone because they can struggle to secure the ball also. And I think the biggest factor in this game is going to be the fact that Caleb Foster is now back for Duke, and that's going to help a lot with this defensive pressure that UConn brings. He had an amazing first game back against St. John's. That was honestly one of the biggest reasons why Duke was able to get the win and advance to the Elite 8. And now with Duke looking finally healthy, although I don't know if they're all 100%, at least they're all going to be on the floor. Then obviously with that talent, it's going to be hard for this UConn team to overcome, but UConn has the experience on their side, and they have a very high-powered offense when the shots are falling. But I think the biggest areas in this game to look at are going to be Taurus Reed versus Duke's front court, and then how the Duke freshmen handle the pressure of an Elite 8 game and trying to make it to the Final Four. But at the end of the day, I come back to this question of, can UConn stop Cameron Boozer? And right now, St. John's wasn't able to do it. TCU wasn't able to do it. I just don't know if UConn's going to be able to do it either. And according to Kalshi, Duke only has a 67% chance to beat UConn, but I think this is way too low. So I'm going to stick with the Duke Blue Devils to get the win and advance to the Final Four out of the East region. Then moving down to the South region, we have the 3 seed in the Illinois Fighting Illini going up against the 9 seed in the Iowa Hawkeyes. And Iowa is definitely the Cinderella of this NCAA tournament. They have been on a tear, beating Nebraska and Florida their past 2 games in order to get here. In Illinois, they were able to knock off Houston on their way to the Elite Eight. But I want to start with Iowa because Iowa might have one of the best coaches in the entire country in Ben McCollum. He just wins wherever he goes. He won at the Division II level. He won last year with Drake, and now he's bringing Iowa to the Elite Eight. And he has all of these players bought into the system that Iowa is playing right now, and they're executing at an extremely high level. The defense has looked good. They're confident on the offensive end, have been shooting the ball really well. And then obviously they have Bennett Sturts, who might be the best player in this game. But other guys like Alvaro Folgueras, Tate Sage have also been stepping up and hitting some very clutch shots en route to them making it to the Elite Eight. But for me, I think there's a really thin margin for error for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and that's because how good Illinois is playing right now. Illinois is obviously one of the best teams in the country. They have one of the best offenses as well, and then they also have their own star in Keaton Wagler, who impacts the game even when he's not scoring, and I think that was huge against Houston with the way that he was able to handle and run that offense and get the ball to other guys on the team that could make plays. Davin Mirkovic has also been good for the Fighting Illini. Andreas Stojakovic, Kylan Boswell, they just have a bunch of different guys that they can go to, and I think Illinois has the clear talent advantage. These teams actually matched up earlier in the season in Big Ten Conference play, and Illinois won the previous meeting 75-69 at Iowa. But I think in order for Illinois to win again, they're going to have to obviously contain Bennett Sturts and not let him have one of his breakout games. The other thing I'm looking at is, can they limit their turnovers? They did pretty good against Houston. Can they keep that up against this Iowa defense that has been playing exceptionally well? And then obviously they're going to need their freshmen to stay poised and execute down the stretch to get a win. But I'm loving how Brad Underwood has this Fighting Illini team playing right now. And overall, I think the talent level of Illinois and the defense that they've been playing recently is going to push them into the win. So give me Illinois to beat Iowa in the Elite Eight and advance to the Final Four out of the South region. And then moving over to the Midwest region, we have the Michigan Wolverines making it to the Elite Eight, and they'll be going up against the 6th seed in the Tennessee Volunteers, who were able to knock off Virginia, the 3 seed, and Iowa State, the 2 seed, in order to get to the Elite Eight. But this is definitely going to be their toughest task yet, because they're going up against a Michigan team that's a top 5 offense and defense in the country. They have one of the most dominant front courts with Yaxel Lindenborg, Morez Johnson Jr., and Ade Mara, and they have proven that they can shoot it well from deep, especially in that game against Alabama. They shot 48% from beyond the arc in that one, and if they're doing that against Tennessee, that's going to be a tough out for the Volunteers. On the offensive end, Michigan is one of the highest scoring teams in the country. They have exceptional ball movement, and then obviously with the front court that they have, they very much play inside out. But I've been mentioning this is the part of the tournament where I'm starting to get concerned with their depth, especially in the backcourt with LJ Kaysen, who suffered a season-ending injury, and now they're thin in that backcourt rotation behind Elliot Cadeau. But a guy like Trey McKinney has been stepping up for the Michigan Wolverines, and as long as he can continually do that, I think Michigan is in a decent spot there in the backcourt. And then for Tennessee, Tennessee has one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the entire country. I'm really interested to see how that is going up against a Michigan team that has a very dominant front court of their own. But for Tennessee, they have an offensive rebound rate of over 50%, which is absolutely insane. They also have some really high volume scorers in Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament, and they can create looks for themselves and others. But this offense at times has been inconsistent, but so far in the tournament, it's been pretty good. And then on the defensive end, obviously this is a Rick Barnes coach team, so this is going to be one of the best defenses in the entire country. They have elite rim protection with Felix Okpara and JP Estrella, and then obviously they play an extremely physical style of basketball. But one thing that concerns me is their ability to shoot from outside. They're not necessarily the best when it comes to shooting the 3 ball, and if you can't hit from deep against Michigan, that could be trouble with how big that front court is. But I am a little concerned on the Michigan side. Not only is Tennessee playing really good, but they play at a slower pace, and most of Michigan's losses this season have occurred when they were forced into a slower pace game, because they don't like doing that. They like to get out and transition, because that's where guys like Yaxel Lindenborg exceed. So if Tennessee can slow the pace down and shorten the length of the game, I think that could cause some issues for Michigan. But at the end of the day, where Tennessee really dominates is on the offensive rebounding, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that against this Michigan front court. And I'm finding it really hard to get away from the Michigan Wolverines. So I'm picking Michigan once again to get the win and advance to the Final Four. And now moving up to our last region, which is the West region, we have the 1-seeded Arizona Wildcats going up against the 2-seed in the Purdue Boilermakers. And this is the matchup I've been wanting. I'll start with Purdue. They have elite execution late in games, and we just saw that against Texas, where Braden Smith was able to get the rim, and although he missed it, Trey Coppin-Ren was there for the putback in order to get Purdue the win over Texas. And then also, they are one of the most experienced teams in the country. 4 of their 5 starters are seniors, and multiple players on this team have national championship game experience. They also have Braden Smith, who is one of the best point guards in the country, running the show for them. And he helped leads one of the best offenses in the entire country. They're very patient and methodical on that end of the floor, and they get high quality shots. But when they're hitting from 3, this is a team that is very hard to stay with. But my biggest concern with Purdue is that they struggle with the physicality that Texas brought, and they're going up against an Arizona team that is one of the most physical teams in the country, especially in the front court. Also, their defense is not elite, which is a clear gap against an Arizona team that's one of the best defenses in the country. And I think in order for Purdue to get this win, they're going to have to be extremely efficient on the offensive end and definitely hit double-digit threes. But for Arizona, as I mentioned, they are dominant physically as they completely overwhelmed Arkansas in that Sweet 16 matchup. In the front court is dominant on the interior. They get elite scoring and rebounding on the inside from guys like Koa Pete, Mo Krivas, and Toby Awaka. And honestly, this team can just beat you in so many ways because they also have elite guard play. Jaden Bradley was the Big 12 Player of the Year. Braden Burries is one of the best freshman guards in the country. And then you got wings like Ivan Karchenkov, Anthony Del Orso. This team just has so many weapons that they can go to, and they're playing like the best team in the tournament right now. I truly believe that. And honestly, the biggest vulnerability for this Arizona team is teams that get extremely hot for 3, because Arizona doesn't even shoot that many threes, and it's not that they can't hit them, it's just that they're so efficient on the interior they can get to their spots at will, so they don't have to shoot the 3. But if Purdue gets hot from outside, that could be an issue for them. And in my main bracket, I do have Purdue winning this game, but I'm starting to rethink this because Arizona, the way that they've looked, as I mentioned, I think they've been the clear best team in the entire tournament so far. And on Kalshi, Arizona has a 70% chance to beat Purdue and advance to the Final Four, but with the way the Wildcats have been playing, this is way too low. And so if I have to pick right now, I'm actually going to be switching. I'm going with Arizona to get the win over Purdue in the West region to advance to the Final Four. So in my Final Four, I got Duke and Illinois, and then Michigan and Arizona. And starting off with Duke and Illinois, this would be one of my favorite matchups to see, and I think we're going to get it. Obviously, you got the stud in Cameron Boozer on the Duke side, but Illinois has their own stud freshman as well in Keaton Wagler. I think the front courts going at it would be really fun to see, especially with the improved Illinois defense it looks like from what we saw against Houston. These bigs have been playing exceptionally well for the Fighting Illini, and the biggest thing is they can stretch you out and shoot it from deep. Tomislav Ivisic, David Mirkovic have both showed the ability to do that, and Zvonimir Ivisic at times can do that as well. But if any team has the bigs that can step out to the perimeter and defend, it's Duke. You got Cameron Boozer, Malik Brown, who is one of the best defenders in the entire country, and Patton Gungba would be able to defend that from the Illini. But I do think Illinois is a team that has the capability of beating Duke, specifically if they're able to get hot from 3. We saw St. John's hit a ton of threes, especially in the first half against Duke, and that gave them some real issues. But Duke has proven to be a team that they can sustain runs from the other team and come back. They came back from double digits against St. John's. They were on the ropes against Siena, and it was a close game against TCU, and then every single time it feels like Duke pulls away at the end. And because of this, I'm trusting Cameron Boozer and the Duke Blue Devils to win this game over Illinois and advance to the national championship. And in that national championship, they'll be taking on either Arizona or Michigan, and this is going to be 2 elite front courts going at it. Both teams have their own 7-footers, with Mo Krivas for Arizona and then Ade Mara for Michigan, as well as their other front court pieces with Merez Johnson Jr. and Yaxel Lindenberg for the Wolverines, and Koa Pete and Toby Awaka for the Arizona Wildcats. But the biggest thing here is I think Arizona clearly has the better guard play with Jaden Bradley and Braden Burries, because on the Michigan side, as I mentioned, LJ Kaysen out for the season. They only have Elliot Cadeau and Namari Burnett, Trey McKinney coming off the bench as well. I think Arizona has a clear advantage there, and that could cause problems for this Michigan team. And Michigan always prides themselves on being the most physical team, especially in the front court, and I don't think that's going to be the case in this matchup. I actually think Arizona's front court is even more physical and would be able to hold their ground against Michigan. And at the end of the day, besides the back-to-back losses that Arizona took in the middle of Big 12 play, they've looked like the most dominant team in the country. So I'm going to be picking Arizona to get the win over Michigan and advance to the national championship game against Duke. And at this point, I think this is truly the national championship game I want to see. Right now, I think these are the two best teams in college basketball. We've already seen the Duke-Michigan matchup, and now I want to see the Duke-Arizona one. And this would probably be Cameron Boozer's toughest matchup of the season because of the bigs that Arizona has. And I think in order for Duke to win this game, guards and wings like Caleb Foster, Caden Boozer, Isaiah Evans, and Dame Sarr are going to have to step up on the offensive end and consistently score. And we've seen bits and pieces of that throughout the season, but obviously Cam Boozer has been the main focal point of this Duke team. But I just truly believe this Duke team has what it takes to beat Arizona and win a national championship. So I'm going to be sticking with my pick of John Shire and Duke getting to the national championship game and winning a national title. But that wraps it up for this one. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of my Elite 8 predictions and who do you think is going to be making it to the Final Four. Also, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.